Mr. Pro. I'm doing it.
Moko on the beat.
How do you look at the report coming from the United Nations recently on the killings and the operation of the indigenous people of Biafra by the Nigerian government?
Oh, well, the report that was carried out by the United Nations Special Rapporteur for extrajudicial and arbitrary execution, Agnes Colamat, noted that the indigenous people of Biafra since 2015 have suffered of arbitrary arrest, arbitrary execution, and extrajudicial killings by the Nigerian states, because the indigenous people of Biafra were exercising their rights to self-determination, which is a United Nations guaranteed rights, and also the African Union's Charter on the Rights of Indigenous People for Self-Determination. So this report goes a long way to buttress the fact and also to support the earlier report by the Amnesty International in 2015, 2016, 2017 concerning this same issue, that the Nigerian state has embarked on the killing and arbitrary arrest and detention and incarceration unlawfully of the indigenous people of Biafra, simply for exercising their rights for self-determination. So as it stands, it means that the world and the United Nations should at this point in time put their reports into practical actions to make sure that the implementation of the United Nations Charter on the Rights of Indigenous People for Self-Determination as regards to the Biafran issue is settled through a referendum, because the indigenous people of Biafra, from the report, haven't committed any crime, have never killed anybody, have never gone against the law. The indigenous people of Biafra have been exercising these inalienable rights within the ambit of the law. The world should understand that since 2015, a lot of Biafrans have been incarcerated unlawfully. Even the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra was also incarcerated for 2 years without the government prosecuting him under the law, because there is no crime committed. And a lot of Biafrans are still languishing in jail as we speak now, whereby when they go to the court, there is no case to answer. And still, these people are still being incarcerated. You see, even our women, they were even rounded up while they were gathering. They were rounded up and they put in jail. You know, and the Nigerian government, they declared indigenous people of Biafra as a terrorist group simply for exercising their constitutional rights for self-determination, because the African Charter on the right of indigenous people for self-determination is also domesticated inside the Nigerian constitution, which makes it also a local law. So when the people of Biafra gathered peacefully without committing any crime, they are bundled, they are killed, they are put in jail for a very long time without any charges. So these things must be looked into by the United Nations with practical action and not just making a report. So the United Nations and the African Union and all the world bodies must stand and stop this extrajudicial killing and unlawful detention that is still ongoing in Nigeria too.
So there is also an invitation from some members of the European Parliament, which the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra attended, and they addressed some members of the European Parliament. So what do you have to say here?
Well, what I have to say about it is that the world knows that Nigeria is a union that is unworkable.
Yeah.
The world knows that people are being killed on daily basis in Nigeria. The world knows about the illegalities and impunity that has been characterized the Nigerian states towards the activities of indigenous population in Nigeria. So this invitation is to tell you that the world is watching Nigeria, and they know that Nigeria as an artificial creation shouldn't have been created at the first place. Even though Nigeria was created for purposely for British interests, it is now time for people to come together peacefully and decide on how to salvage the indigenous population that is suffering. You see how Nigerians are being sold as slaves in Libya. You see how Nigerians are being killed in South Africa. You see how Nigerians are being drowned in the Mediterranean Sea. So all these things, you see the influx of Nigerians in all over the world. It is also indirectly affecting these European nations. So for them to come, call the indigenous people of Biafra to come and they present the way forward for Nigeria and for Biafra, it is a very good and welcome development. So, and it can never be unconnected with all these reports, because all these reports has been there for a very long time. Although they have not acted at the time they're supposed to have acted to stop the mayhem and the killings that is going on in Nigeria. But as they have done it now, it is a very good and welcome development. It shows that the activities of the indigenous people of Biafra is not in secret. The activities of the indigenous people of Biafra is not a terrorist act, because the Nigerian state see the indigenous people of Biafra who are unarmed, who are peacefully demonstrating, seeking for self-determination as a terrorist organization. Whereas the European Union, the world over, they know that this is a peaceful movement that does not warrant to be tagged a terrorist organization. So for the invitation, it goes a long way to show that Nigeria made a very big mistake, was very, very wrong to have tagged the indigenous people of Biafra as a terrorist group. So for inviting the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, or inviting the people of Biafra to the European Parliament to present their issue, is to show you that the indigenous people of Biafra is well recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kalagu. Yes, looking at it, we see the report coming from the United Nations. We also see the invitation coming from the European Parliament, and which the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra attended yesterday, 10th of September 2019. Why sudden report and the invitation to the indigenous people of Biafra right now?
Well, the why sudden and the reason for this is to confirm that the activities of the indigenous people of Biafra is a legitimate one. The activities of the indigenous people of Biafra is an activity that is premised on the law. It is an activity that is founded within the ambit of the United Nations Charter on the rights of indigenous people of Biafra. So they have conferred legitimacy to the activities of the indigenous people of Biafra. And as we know, that legitimacy and sovereignty rightly belongs to the people. So it is to tell you also that the diplomatic activities or diplomatic push by the indigenous people of Biafra is very, very strong and also at the right direction. So these are the reasons why you see this calling to come and present the issue of Biafra before the European Parliament.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kalagu. Yes, the invitation of the indigenous people of Biafra to the European Parliament by some members of the European Parliament on 10th of September 2019 is a welcome development. We saw the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra, the leader and the other members of the indigenous people of Biafra at the European Parliament, the premises there. So we saw them there, and there has not been any video presentation of what happened that yesterday. So what do you have to say here so that our audience will be carried along to understand exactly what happened at the European Parliament yesterday?
The appearance of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra and the members of the executives of the indigenous people of Biafra to the European Parliament was a huge success. And coming from the question that you have asked, if you have watched some of the videos whereby the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, addressed members of the indigenous people of Biafra that has gathered all over from every countries of Europe to be at the premises of the European Parliament, you hear him when he said that if you know what the Nigerian government has been doing to make sure that that presentation was stopped, you will understand. So this is a diplomatic push which is still under secret in order not to jeopardize the successes that the indigenous people of Biafra wants to achieve. So if you look at the challenges that the indigenous people of Biafra is facing today, it is because the Nigerian state do not want the people of Biafra to be free. So the Nigerian state is capable of paying anything, doing anything whatsoever to make sure that they stop that presentation. So that is the reason why you see the actual presentation made by the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra to the members of the European Parliament was not made public because of the security of our diplomatic push. So what we should take out of it is what our leader have said. He said that the Nigerian state tried everything to stop him from making the presentation. And now that he has succeeded in making the presentation, the next stage now will be at the United Nations. That is to tell you that it was a huge success. So people must understand the type of challenges that the indigenous people of Biafra is facing in order to restore Biafra. So I advise our people back home, the indigenous people of Biafra, lovers of freedom, and our friends, to understand that the indigenous people of Biafra is poised to restore Biafra.
Yes, we are determined.
Through the leadership of Nnamdi Kanu. So there is no doubt in what the indigenous people of Biafra is doing. So if you do not see the video, you don't have to worry about it, because what we are looking up to is to be free from the enslavement that we are seeing in Nigeria.